In the 2001 film The Others, starring Nicole Kidman, Grace Stewart, a solemn, tightly wound woman, lives with her 2 children in a secluded Victorian mansion on the Isle of Jersey just after World War II. As she awaits the return of her husband from the war, she clings to routine and religious dogma with brittle intensity, desperate to maintain order in a world that seems to be slipping through her fingers. Her children, Anne and Nicholas, suffer from a rare condition that makes them dangerously sensitive to sunlight, an affliction that forces the family to live in near total darkness. With heavy curtains drawn and doors constantly being locked, creating an environment that breeds tension, suspicion, and an overwhelming sense of isolation. Everything changes one day when a trio of odd, soft-spoken servants arrive seemingly out of nowhere to assist with the house. Strange things begin to happen. The servants are not who they seem. Whispers float through the halls, the piano plays itself, and her daughter reports speaking to unseen figures. While walking through the grounds of her property one day, Grace encounters her husband seemingly lost and wandering aimlessly around the estate. For a brief, disorienting moment, Grace believes her prayers have been answered, but his arrival is spectral, his presence detached and distant. He says very little and doesn't stay very long. And just as suddenly as he appeared, he disappears again. Grace becomes increasingly unhinged as she begins to lose her grip on order. She accuses her daughter of lying, punishing the girl, and becoming further unmoored from her sense of reality that seems to be slipping away. She sinks further into paranoia, suspecting the servants of conspiring against her. As the tension builds, Grace soon begins to realize why the servants give her a sense of unease. Her world quickly unravels and her facade of perfection begins to fracture. She is eventually faced with the terrifying truth. Grace and her children are dead. Her husband, who came and went briefly, had actually perished in the war, his spirit forever haunting the grounds of his estate. The others she feared were the ghosts were in fact a new family that had recently moved into the house. Grace and her children have been haunting the house all along, unaware that they no longer belong to the world of the living. The film serves as a metaphor for how the avoidance of truth in exchange for maintaining a facade of normalcy can erode one's sense of self and lead to a life of paranoia and isolation. Grace doesn't realize she's trapped until it's too late. Despite her tenuous grip on maintaining the illusion of control, she is forced to confront the horrifying truth. In time, the woman who once tried so desperately to keep the world out finds that she has vanished altogether. When one becomes ensnared in the trappings of appearances, where truth is buried and reality denied, the world itself becomes a prison. The moral of the film is devastating. When you spend a lifetime guarding secrets, the truth eventually finds its way, awakening you to a nightmare of your own making. Deep within Windsor Great Park stands Forest Lodge, a Georgian mansion that we are told William and Kate have chosen as their new forever home. But behind its red brick facade lies a history so dark, so steeped in blood and tragedy, that it reads like a gothic horror novel. Our tale begins in 1803 when the estate was purchased by Spencer Mackay, who owned sugar plantations in British Guyana. Mackay was a merchant of human souls, a man whose every luxury was paid for with the blood, sweat, and tears of enslaved people. At emancipation in 1833, Mackay not the former slaves, mind you, received reparations to the tune of over £23,000, roughly over $3 million in today's money, in compensation for his lost property. This allowed him to purchase the estate then known as Holly Grove. Not long after, the cosmic justice of the universe began to unfold. McKay died in February 1846, and his blood money seemed to carry a terrible curse. His son, Alexander, died in 1847, just 1 year after his father. Spencer McKay Jr. died in France in 1860, leaving a sum of under £200, a pittance compared to his father's vast fortune. And Thomas Henry McKay, who followed, dying in 1865. The plantation fortune, built on 648 enslaved lives, was completely dissipated within a generation. Spencer McKay's tombstone bore the symbol of a hand holding a dagger, as if death itself had marked the family for destruction. The house's dark magnetism continued to attract royal scandal. In 1936, Edward VIII, the same Edward VIII who would abdicate the throne to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson, decided to lease the property to his equerry, Sir John Heir. Now here's where things really get wild. Sir John Heir was with the then Prince of Wales in Kenya's Happy Valley in 1923, when Edward and his brother, the Duke of Gloucester, shared the bedroom favors of the transatlantic Kenyan aviator Beryl Markham. The house now harbored the secrets of royal sexual debauchery, but Forest Lodge's most horrific chapter was yet to be written. Sir John Heir, diagnosed with bladder cancer, told his wife to bring him a locked case. Within it was his old service revolver. In the bedroom of Forest Lodge, Sir John Heir shot himself dead. Lady Priscilla Heir, upon hearing the report of the gunshot, hurriedly climbed the stairs to discover her husband's bloodied corpse sprawled across their bed. Even in the 21st century, Forest Lodge could not escape its reputation as a house of sudden, inexplicable death. In 2009, wealthy U.S. philanthropist and socialite Elisa Swidler, dubbed London's most connected woman, along with her husband Josh, a hedge fund manager, and their 5 children, lived at Forest Lodge for about a decade. But in 2019, Alyssa died suddenly. The circumstances of her death remain shrouded in mystery. And now Forest Lodge is soon to add to its latest occupants, William and Kate, or more specifically, Kate, because I doubt William will be spending much time there. The 2 families who lived in cottages converted from the stables on the compound were asked to vacate the properties to make way for William and Kate's security detail. Now, my take on this move is that the house is part of a separation agreement. If you recall, earlier this year, it was reported that William had hired his late mother's divorce attorneys, but William realizes he cannot divorce Kate. Not while Charles is still alive. He tried to soft launch a separation last year, but it failed spectacularly. Kate has him by the balls, and he knows it. The only way he can get back at her is to cut her off financially. This is why she keeps sending signals to the press that she's stepping back from royal duties. She's been saying that for over a year now. Now, I think initially William was willing to let her have Adelaide Cottage, but Carol probably stepped in and said, "Nah, Adelaide Cottage is clearly not substantial enough. I mean, the place does look like a giant doll's house." Carol probably insisted that they get something much grander. That's why they first came up with the idea of Fort Belvedere. But for whatever reason, probably because it looks like a penal institution, the Middletons decided against it, and Carol eventually settled on Forest Lodge. Now, I think we can all agree that Charles is clearly annoyed about William and Kate. For the youngest working royals, they aren't doing very much work. They decided to play hooky on VJ Day, where they were nowhere to be seen. The press won't say it outright, but this was extremely embarrassing to Charles. It showed once again that William has little respect for his father. Harry, without much effort on his part, managed to inadvertently expose the apathy and indolence of his brother, arranging to have a wreath laid on his behalf for the VJ Day service. William, as you may guess, blew his top, realizing once again he had been outflanked and outshone by his younger brother. The press, of course, tried their best to shift the narrative, claiming that while Harry surfs, William serves, the same William who refuses to get off his butt from wherever he happens to be vacationing to attend a military memorial service, sending instead a pathetic social media post. If you recall in Harry's book Spare, Harry wanted to have someone lay a wreath at the cenotaph on his behalf, and his request was flatly refused. The press claims it was Elizabeth's decision, but folks, I don't believe this for a second. In the final year of Elizabeth's life, much of her autonomy was slowly being chipped away by Charles, Camilla, William, and the help of the little gray men who steered the Queen away from any personal decision-making, such as when she agreed to meet with her grandson, then was later told to inform him that she couldn't due to scheduling conflicts. Now, I believe the Queen knew that Harry was the only one who could save the monarchy. Her own son was a weak cuckold of a man, hopelessly wrapped around Camilla's finger. Think about this, folks. The entire time Charles held control of the Duchy of Cornwall, he spared no expense, lavishing cash and gifts on his mistress, including trust funds for her children, while his own children had to beg him for money. Which explains why the moment William got his hands on that duchy money, what was the first thing he did? He cut off Camilla's sister, who was sucking off the taxpayer teat for a no-show job as a decorator for years. It might explain why Camilla looks so nervous these days. She knows that the day will come when Charles is gone and William's wrath will unleash spectacularly on her. It explains why she's busy meddling into Charles's will, making last-minute changes to ensure that she will remain safe somehow. Kate debuted a new look this week. She was seen arriving to church with William and the children sporting very blonde hair. Plastered in the papers, the unflattering headline, Peroxide Princess. Well, it didn't take long for Kensington Palace to give them a call, prompting them to change the headline to something far less interesting. The secret is out. The gloves are off. There is clearly strife between the heir and the monarch playing out in plain sight. Who will come out on top is anybody's guess. This cover came out late in the day about yet another reset, or what are they calling it now? Another new normal? William loves her more than ever, it says. Kate wants so desperately to convince the public that William loves her so much, when everybody can see that they don't really like each other anymore. It looks like they're going through something. But now the press is openly admitting that they are having marriage struggles. Everything they claim is happening to Harry and Meghan is really happening to William and Kate. Because how many new normals, how many resets can a person have? This is not normal, but I have a theory. Okay, so let's analyze this. Here we have a woman who, for all intents and purposes, an employee of the crown, who is ostensibly earning a salary through the Duchy of Cornwall, held by her husband. Now, we don't know how much Kate gets paid, if she's even getting paid at all, because William is very secretive about his finances. No surprise there. The only time information was ever released to the public about her salary was when her father-in-law controlled the Duchy of Cornwall. But if you notice something, folks, we started to see signs of friction between her and the family after the death of the Queen. Kate was being supported by Charles. She was getting a salary as Duchess of Cambridge from Charles, the then Prince of Wales. Remember, while the Queen was still alive, she publicly criticized her for her lavish spending habits and frequent vacations. And I will say this to Kate's credit, that there was a time when she was actually doing something. Even if it was just waving or ribbon cutting, there was a time when Kate was showing up. And look, I know everybody wants to say she's lazy, and she certainly seems lazy now, but there was a time when she seemed like a person happily employed. And you have to ask yourself, why has she suddenly become so lazy? Now, you know the official answer to that question, but you already know my thoughts on the cancer theory. I mean, first it wasn't cancer related. Then cancer had been present. There was preventative chemotherapy, which means she didn't actually have cancer? I don't know. The message was deliberately confusing. Then the reporter said it was really pre-cancer cells, but then that was corrected. Oh, very strange. Then she was cancer-free. Then she was in remission, which usually comes before declaring yourself cancer-free, but okay. What else should we expect from Kensington Palace at this point? But could it simply be that Kate just has a new employer that isn't as generous as her old employer? The Duchy of Cornwall money is no longer in the hands of her father-in-law. It's now in the hands of her husband. And he has an axe to grind against everybody. He doesn't get along with his brother. He doesn't get along with his brother's wife. He doesn't get along with his stepmother. He doesn't get along with his father. Who else? He's not getting along with Anne. This guy is a problem, but nobody can touch him because he is the heir. So people just have to deal with him. They can't do anything about it. That is the system they have set up. A monarchy buttressed by a centuries-long class system where a few people in society are above everyone else. So why should you blame him? It's the system that gives him all his power. Think about it, folks. Do you think Kate is ever going to admit that she's no longer getting paid? That she's no longer getting a salary? Or if she is getting a salary, it's probably something stupid like £20,000 a year or something. Because I can see William doing something like that, being petty and cutting her off financially. That's how he wanted to treat his brother. He wanted so much to finally control Harry, to punish him for whatever slight he committed against him. Think about it. If Harry was still there, Meghan or no Meghan, William would be finding any excuse to punish him financially. But Harry said no. I'm out of here. William cannot stand that. He cannot stand that he was robbed of the opportunity to exert total control and domination over his brother. He is so aggrieved to the point where he's openly telling people that he fucking hates him. I mean, is it not clicking for some of you people who defend the monarchy that something is wrong with this guy? He is a problem child, and there's no accountability for his behavior because of this outdated draconian class system that a shrinking number of the population is desperately clinging to because they think it makes them look quaint and charming to the rest of the world. It's complete nonsense, and the public is increasingly resentful of it. So let's recap. Right after the Queen died, William inherits control over the duchy bag, which by the way provides payroll to William and Kate's staff. He cuts her off, becoming more and more controlling. She's afraid to say anything publicly because she needs to maintain the image of Miss Perfection. And in any case, if Kate ever went against the firm, the press would absolutely destroy her. So he stops paying her, punishment for something or other. And maybe they had some kind of big blowout, some big fight that happened around December 2023. Now, we don't know what happened, but we do know that whatever they told us had happened, to take with a grain of salt. And if you believe it's because he's tightening the purse strings, think again. As soon as he gave old girl Annabella the boot, he promptly put his drinking buddy on the payroll. For William, everything is about control. And I can see him saying to Kate, well, why do you need all this money? You have a house, you have servants. Besides, he doesn't like her as much as in the days when he was landing helicopters on her lawn trying to impress her quote-unquote rich parents. That's why you're constantly reading things like William loves her so much, they're so much in love. She's constantly trying to prove that they have this fairy tale marriage when clearly we can see that they don't. And I've said this before, but one of the reasons why she keeps trying to project this idea to the world is because she's trying to mimic Harry and Meghan's relationship. We already know that Kate has a history of copying people who she feels maybe has something she wants. I don't know. She copied William's ex. She copied Victoria Beckham. And thanks to her ex-assistant, we know that she was copying Meghan. Kate has such little confidence in herself. It's really very sad. She just does whatever she is told, just so that everyone can say that she is the perfect princess. No, she doesn't cause the family any trouble. Not like that Diana. And certainly not like Meghan. She's going to show the world that she's the perfect little princess with no flaws, no voice, no opinions about anything, because heaven forbid she might actually have issues, mental issues, self-esteem issues, issues that manifest through disordered eating. She has a complete lack of agency. And I think Carol has had a lot to do with this. At a critical time in her youth, when she had a chance to dump William for good and go off and marry somebody rich, who would have given her that cushy life she wants without the duty, just like her quote-unquote friends in the turnip toff. Instead of rebelling against her mother and going her own way, she chose instead to give up her autonomy, her entire sense of self. I think Carol finally decided on this place. This is going to be Carol's court. Kate can't quit, but she can go on strike. Maybe that's why we keep seeing reports in the press like this. The countless resets, the new normals. Every month, the press talks about her new normal. What would you do if you were trapped in a marriage where you were being controlled financially? Remember now, the Middletons' money problems weren't exposed until Elizabeth's death. I think that when Charles was Kate's boss and she was getting a regular salary, she was able to support her mother. What if all the kabuki theater last year was simply Kate refusing to play ball anymore because she wasn't getting paid? What if Mr. Big Shot Moneybags simply cut her off? And the press is just dying to let us know that Forest Lodge is part of the terms of the agreement. That's all, folks. So leave your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. And give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And subscribe for more. And I'll catch you all in the next video.